Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our webinar on essential networking strategies for MBAs. We have an incredible special guest, and I'm so excited to have her. She is in from Florence, Italy. Wish I was there. She is the founder of Career Protocol, but I want to tell you a little bit about Angela Guido before I actually turn it over to her. We have an MBA admissions consulting directory, and we allow people to put reviews on that. And when Angela mainly did admissions consulting, I have to say that some of those reviews were so spectacular. They raved on and on about Angela and how she really connected with people that I have to say I wanted her to be my coach. And over the years, we've met in California for lunch now and then. And this May 10th, she will be appearing at our pre-MBA Networking Festival opening event at NYU Stern. No, you won't. I thought you were.
I did it in year one, John, but you can't get me out of Florence this year. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. I was
next year. I'll be there next year.
But let me tell you something else about Angela. She has just taken over our MBA careers column on the homepage of Poets and Quants, and is eager and ready to provide thoughtful answers and guidance to people who have, serious MBA career questions. So let me turn it over to Angela for her incredible presentation on networking essentials for MBAs. Angela, it's all yours.
Thank you, John. Okay, so can I share my screen? Let me see. No.
Sorry,
guys.
Make you host right now, and you'll be able
Thank you.
Okay.
We have to wait a moment until I get the slides because I'm kind of a boring talking head.
No, you're not.
Yes, I'm a very boring head. I think all heads are boring. So I have a whole deck here. Very excited to share. Here we go. Okay. You can see it, right?
Yes, I can see it. It's great.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, so here we are, everybody. Essential networking strategies for MBAs. How to make real professional friendships. I'm really excited to be talking about this topic tonight because relationship building is really my favorite thing, and I think it's probably the most important skill set for you to develop as a future business leader or even as a present business leader. So John kind of gave you the skinny on me. Here's a few more things you should know if you don't already know me. I am a language nerd, a philosophy major. I'm a former, and I consider myself a current teacher. I got my MBA from Booth. I worked at BCG for many years after my MBA. I'm a failed screenwriter.
No.
And yeah, I've written like 8 screenplays, John, that are sitting on my hard drive.
Wow.
And I meditate a lot. All of this kind of comes together to form a picture of the meaning of my life, which is really, I consider myself a student of human nature. I really enjoy asking big questions about what it means to be human, why we're here, how can we live a great life. And so all of my work is really focused on what I think is the essence of human nature and how we can use our own human nature to fulfill our potential. So today's session is based on these ideas. And here's our agenda. So we're going to talk a little bit about the future, so very uncertain. Why do we hate networking? And then we're going to get right into how to make professional friends. At the end, I'm going to tell you a little bit about YOMO, which is an awesome course coming up in the summer. And then we'll do some Q&A. And as a note, you're going to get a recording of this afterwards, plus some cool stuff from me. So while you're here, just engage in the conversation. And I think, can I see? No, oh yeah, I can. Oh, I can. Awesome. Okay. So there's a couple of times that I may ask some questions and have you guys get back to me. Let's see how this goes. Yeah. So if you have this on your screen, the place to communicate with me is in this little area here with the checkbox and the no and the raise hand. And it looks a little different because this is a different platform than the one I was using, but yeah, we'll try it. We'll see what happens. All right. So the future, very uncertain. You've probably heard this quote: change is the only constant in life. And here's the thing. As an MBA, you are very likely going to be changing jobs, not just once in the next couple of years, but up to 3 times. This was a GMAC study from a few years ago, and they found that the average MBA has 3 jobs in their first 10 years post-business school. And I love MBAs. All of my work is really focused on MBAs. For the last 10 years, I've been working exclusively with MBAs. And the reason I love MBAs is because I think the MBA right now is the degree that people seek when they want to make a difference in the world. And the vast majority of my clients are pursuing an MBA because they have really big and ambitious goals that include making the world a better place. Do you agree, John? Do you feel like that's also the case?
I totally agree, and I think it's become an all-purpose degree. In other words, you don't have to enter business to get the benefit of it. A lot of people doing nonprofit, social enterprise, government work, and the MBA is really a launch pad for them.
Exactly right. And again, like, this is why I love this degree. But here's the thing. We're still human, us MBAs. And how do humans tend to feel about change? We tend not to like it very much. I mean, even those of us who are really ambitious and are seeking change, it's not so easy. But of course, change is the reason you wanted the MBA in the first place. So you really have to change your attitude and your experience of change to something more like this. You really want to be looking to your future and expecting changes and new experiences with excitement and joy. And this is really what I do in all of my work. I help people achieve their goals and have more fun at work in the process. And the way I do it is I work with our human nature, because in the end, we're all human. So here are the keys to work-life success. This is like a very big slide. So you got to understand yourself. You've got to make confident choices. You've got to communicate brilliantly. And you have to nurture relationships. What I've discovered in my many years of coaching MBAs is that it's the relationships that are going to make your transitions fun and easy. Who knows you, who believes in you, who wants to have you on their team, that's what's going to determine how quickly and easily you can move from what you're doing now to what you want to do next. So that's what this webinar is all about. No one who achieves success does so without the help of others. If you look in your own life, even getting into business school, you probably had tons of people help you on your essays, on your recommendations, on your resume, even the people at work who gave you the opportunities so that you could have those amazing bullets on your resume. Your life is the product of a community that has supported you. So as you go forward, you want to build and nurture that community, because relationships are what are going to create your long-term success. As far as your MBA is concerned, and as far as early in your career goes, I'm going to see if I can use the drawing tools. Yeah, here we go. So look, this is what has been responsible for the majority of your success so far. It's your abilities and your achievements, how smart you are, where you went to school, what you've achieved, what's on your resume. This is what has gotten you more or less to where you are now. Well, post-MBA, it's mostly about this. It's mostly about your relationships. The MBA gets you into your next job, for sure. The school you go to is going to create opportunities, and the recruitment process is going to give you the chance to springboard in a new direction. But beyond that, it's really about your relationships. The most important jobs, the most interesting jobs are never publicized. They're offered only among friends. So building your relationships, again, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but here's the last point. It's also what makes work awesome. Working with people you love is what will make your day-to-day life much more fun. So let's talk about networking. We're talking about building relationships, and then we look at a slide like this, and it probably evokes a very different kind of reaction. So let's see what the poll results were. Here we had this question: networking, do you hate it, or do you love it, or are you somewhere in between? Let's see what the results. Oh, share results. I have never used this before. Let's see. Attendees are now viewing the results, but it looks like no one chimed in.
We have over 70 people on this webinar, so
yeah.
Can we open the poll again and
Yeah,
have
let's see
people
if I can do it again. Here, okay, I opened it again.
Cool.
There we go. Now they're answering. Okay, can you guys see it, or am I the only one who can see it? John, can you see the results?
I can see the quick poll.
You can see the quick poll.
Host and panelists cannot vote. So
Sorry,
I can see the poll now. So I think everyone else can see it. Okay,
perfect. So we got like 70% response rate. So let's see if I can share the results now. Okay, so this is an MBA crowd. So, we kind of got there. Can you guys see? So we only got a couple of really honest people that said they hated it. And then most people are somewhere in the middle, like, 20 people said only if I have to.
Wow.
But the mode
only 1 in 10 love it.
Yeah, exactly. Only 1 in 10 love it. I'm in the hate it box. Definitely when I was in business school, I was in the hate it column for sure. I've only finally just moved down all the way to I love it in my late adult life, but for reasons that will be clear in a moment. All right, so that was illustrative. Thanks for participating in the poll, everybody. So let's look at this. Why do we hate networking? Almost everyone said they either hate it or, really can only tolerate it at best in certain circumstances. So if we don't like networking, those of us who don't really love it so much, why? Well, I think the reason is this, because networking tends to evoke a couple of reactions in us. The first is that we tend to feel judged. And just think about it. This is natural. You're going to meet people that are maybe going to someday, hopefully, maybe give you a job. And the temptation is to feel like you're being evaluated. And when we feel like we're being evaluated, we always, kind of don't feel super secure about that. No matter how awesome we actually are, this evokes feelings of insecurity and, again, being judged. The alternative is that it might make you feel a little bit manipulative, like you're using people, like you're going to a networking event to meet people so that they can help your career. It's treating them as a means to an end. And as a human, this really doesn't feel good because you don't like to be used. You don't like to be treated as a means to an end. So naturally, it's not going to feel good to you to use other people that way either. So these are the two kind of traps we fall into when we approach networking as networking. But I really believe that perspective shapes your experience. So if the current paradigm for networking disempowers you and you have to network, as we've already clarified, just change what it means to you. Change the context. So you've got this amazing networking festival coming up here, which I unfortunately will not be joining you at. But here it comes. It's probably for most of you the first conference you're going to be attending as an MBA or a rising MBA or an MBA candidate. And it definitely will not be your last. And so instead of looking at conferences as a chance to network, which is generally what we think, why not just think of it as a chance to make new friends? Because isn't that really what networking is in the end? It's just making new friends. So how do you make professional friends? Let's make this really tangible for you so that you can kind of kick the paradigm of networking to the curb and fashion a strategy and a set of tools for networking that make you feel better and that make you more effective at building relationships. So there are 3 steps to shifting your mindset about networking. And here's the first one. Job searching is not the same thing as networking. Now, this was a surprise to me during my MBA because I had never done anything that I would have remotely associated with networking until I needed a job. I needed a summer internship during my MBA. And this is not networking. So looking for a job, even going to corporate networking events isn't really networking. It's not the thing you want to do because it puts you in a reactive mode. So if you're only building relationships when you need a job, inherently you need something. So you're going to feel needy, you're going to feel judged, you're in fear and survival mode, and it's just not going to bring out your very best. So, and it just feels icky, right? I think you guys can all relate to this. You've probably all been in a moment where you really needed a new job, or you needed a new roommate, or you needed information about something, and you went to an event and it it just didn't feel like you could connect with people. And this is why. So the idea is, and you guys are having this information at exactly the perfect time. You want to build relationships now and always, but especially now, so that they're there to support you when you're ready for a new career move. And for many of you, that's summer internship recruiting. So like October, November, December is when that starts to get quite serious for next year. So now, as a rising MBA, it's still April. So you've got 5 or 6 months before you have to get serious about recruiting. And almost anyone is going to be willing to talk to you now, because now you're just a roving, talented free agent who doesn't really need anything. So now's the time to be reaching out and connecting with people, having informational interviews, and building relationships. So here's some Monday morning actions. This was a fond term at BCG. What are we going to do differently on Monday morning? So here are some recommendations. First of all, I recommend you keep connections at your current firm. So I posted this actually, John, on Poets and Quants just a couple of days ago. There's an article called 3 Things to Do Before You Quit. Mm-hmm. And I walk through a framework here of, really a series of good ideas to nurture the relationships that you've taken all this time to build before you leave your current firm. And you never know, even if you're not going back to your current firm, there's a very good chance that someone you've worked with in the past will be important to you in the future, whether you work with them at a new company or whether they introduce you to someone who can hire you someday. You want to maintain relationships that you've built over the years. So especially your recommenders, especially the people who supported you, take the time to really solidify those relationships and make them personal before you kind of jet off to your yacht week or whatever you have before your MBA. And then for other people that you didn't work with, this is old friends, fellow alumni, now is a really good time to reach out and say hello. Tell them you're going to business school, thank them for being a friend, thank them for the advice they gave you 3 years ago, thank them for being a mentor, let them know about your planned next steps, and then ask them to connect you to anyone they know who could be helpful in your next step. You'll probably be surprised. If you start looking at your network now, and LinkedIn is really great for this, you can find that you're pretty well connected to many of the opportunities that you might want post-MBA. Even if they're not first-degree connections, probably someone that you know knows them, and now is the time to start building these relationships. So I really encourage you to do that now rather than in October when you start to get a little bit desperate before this happens. Believe me, this mindset happens to everyone. Even the people who get 25 offers, this experience is essential to being an MBA. You're gonna freak out about recruiting. It's just unavoidable. So build those relationships now before you get there. All right, and then building a friendship is not a transaction. So it's really tempting to view networking events as transactional. I mean, there you are, you've got a cocktail, there's 25 other people that you might talk to. It's easy to think that you need to go around and collect business cards, shake hands, etc. Certainly that is sadly the approach I took in my first couple of networking events. But let's try something different. Let's work with the anatomy of a friendship. So if you think about all of the friends that you have, this is what those relationships are made of. There was a connection. You met somewhere, maybe by chance, maybe through a class, maybe a friend introduced you, maybe you met on LinkedIn, but there was a connection and you recognized each other, you smiled, you liked each other, there was a connection. Then there was a future. The future is essential. Otherwise, the relationship can't go from hello to really being a relationship. Then you've got shared positive experiences. This could be anything from working side by side in on one end, and it could just be a nice email exchange on the other end, but it's shared positive experiences. And then eventually you want to have shared connections. So a network is really only a network when it's multiple people all connected to each other. It shouldn't be a hub and spoke system where it's just you individually connected to a bunch of people. You want to introduce people to each other. That's how the network starts to really have value for you and everyone in it. So given that you have a conference coming up, let's talk about these first 2 steps, because that's really a networking event, a conference, a recruiting event. These are all places to make new connections. So that's what's going to happen in New York. So here's what I recommend you aim for. Try to make a genuine human connection. And you know what this means. I don't have to explain this philosophically. You know when you've really connected with someone. I think this picture really captures the emotion of it. It's a happy thing when you connect with a fellow human being. So how do you do that? How do you make a connection with a stranger? Well, can I see the chat? Hold on a second. Oh, wait, let me see. Ooh, I can. Yay. Oh my gosh, I can see the chat. Okay. So actually, let me ask you guys to answer this question for me. How do you make a connection with a stranger? When you're meeting someone for the first time, how do you make a real connection? Type it in the chat box. Let me hear from you guys.
Great answer there.
We've got find something in common, find a shared experience, find commonalities. Wow. Find something in common. Did you guys all read the same blog post? This is everybody's saying the same thing. Find something in common. Give a compliment.
Complimenting the person.
Yeah, there's a good one. Give a compliment. Inquire about their interests. Okay, very good. Make a joke. Good. Okay, so you guys just proved my point. You know how to make a connection. You know how to do it. Here's a more robust answer that includes everything that you guys said. So the first thing is you want to create a positive interaction. Philosophically, at bottom, this is it. Create a positive interaction. It could be as simple as smiling. You know, when you look at someone across the room and you smile at them, you make a connection. All right, so could be smiling, could be sharing a joke, finding a common interest, discovering a friend in common, learning something new together, engaging in lively dialogue, sharing genuine emotion. So there's all kinds of ways that you create a positive interaction. And finding common ground and finding a common interest is a little bit of a tricky one, you guys, because it's amazing when it works. But I know you've had the experience of talking to someone, especially someone who was important, like a recruiter or, someone senior to you, and you were like grasping around for a common interest and you couldn't quite find it. And then it just kind of fell flat. And it can seem like you're looking for a needle in a haystack when you're trying to find a common interest with someone very different from you. So you can't always rely on that one. But there's a lot of different ways that we naturally create positive interactions. And the emotion of a positive interaction that never, ever fails is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm always works. So if you're enthusiastic about your career, about the company, about the Korean taco truck you just discovered, whatever you're enthusiastic about, that will be contagious and it will make a positive connection with anyone you're talking to. So given that you are going to a networking event, a conference, let's talk about how you can use enthusiasm to make a connection right away, even in that moment when you step out of the elevator and there's the managing director of recruiting at Goldman Sachs standing right in front of you. What do you do? How do you use enthusiasm in that moment? Well, let's look at what you're enthusiastic about. Simple question, right? So here's some things in general that I've found that humans tend to be enthusiastic about. Things that they love, things that are important to them, things that matter, things they're curious about, and things that they want. So any one of these is a good place to start to introduce yourself, is to talk about something you love, something that matters to you, something you're curious about, and something that you want. So at a networking event, first of all, you never have to talk about work, especially when it's like hors d'oeuvre hour, cocktail hour, you're standing around and everyone's having a group conversation. What are some of the things you like to talk about, John, in that situation?
I talk about my passions, music, baseball, reading, watching movies.
Yep. Exactly, right? So you can really kind of just talk about whatever is interesting to you. And in fact, some of the best conversations I've ever had at networking events were about things like that: music, movies, plays that I had just seen, travel, things like that. So don't be shy about talking about your personal passions, especially in the broader networking event when people are milling around and it's, people in groups. But inevitably this moment will come when someone is going to turn to you and say, okay, so what do you do? What's your story? And even if this doesn't happen, you will be in the presence of recruiters and you will want to make yourself known to them. So let's, so I have this blog post that I really like called Death to the Elevator Pitch. And I think if I share a link in here, I think it'll go out to you guys. Let me see if I can, to all panelists and attendees. There it is. Okay. There's the link to Death to the Elevator Pitch. And then let me also share with you that, that 3 things to do before you quit on Poets and Quants. So, so this article talks about how we've gone horribly, horribly wrong as a species by thinking that we need to use an elevator pitch to introduce ourselves. It's so misguided. It's not what the elevator pitch was for. So if you want to know more about that, check out that article. But here's a better way. Here's a better way to introduce yourself in a way that leverages enthusiasm. So choose something from your career that you love. Let's just work with something you love. And then use the past, present, and the future to create a really brief introduction that allows you to make yourself known fully to the person that you're talking to, leveraging your enthusiasm. So let me give you an example of what that might look like. And this is a way that I might have introduced myself when I was in business school. So, and I'm imagining here that I'm talking to a recruiter at a consulting firm, which I did a lot when I was in business school. All right, so so far in my career, I've focused on human development, first as a teacher and then as a strategic human resources manager. What I love about my work is helping people grow and aligning organizational structure to create efficiency and learning opportunities. After my MBA, I hope to join a consulting firm so that I can have the same impact on organizations across a variety of industries and continue learning about business myself. So that was kind of flat because I was reading it. Sorry about that. But if I had said it, you know, like naturally, you could have seen that I was talking about something that I'm genuinely enthusiastic about. And at the same time, I'm connecting myself to the company. I'm explaining what I've done in a way that connects directly with what the firm does, while at the same time focusing on something that I'm enthusiastic about. So you can use this template and you can play around with it. You can put the present first or the future first, and then go back to the past. You can kind of move all these pieces around. But consider thinking about what you've really loved about your work, and then how does that relate to your career in terms of what you've done so far, what you are excited about now, and what you're looking to do post-MBA. And then use this to really get a conversation going focused on your passions. It's going to feel a lot better than an elevator pitch. And it will make a genuine connection because people are really inspired when they are talking to people who are inspired. That's all there is to it. When you're talking about something that you love, your enthusiasm is contagious. So try this out. It's not a transaction. It's really creating a connection. All right. And the last step to changing your mindset is that hello does not equal goodbye. And this was the biggest mistake that I made. This is like the coolest cheat for networking or for making professional friends that I figured out actually pretty recently, sadly. And this is that networking connections fall off a cliff. Of course, right? We've all been to events where we come home with this stack of business cards and it's like so full of promise and so exciting, this stack of paper, and then we put it on our desk and then it sits there and then a week passes and then 3 weeks pass. And then pretty soon we've got this and our career hasn't changed at all. And when you pick up those cards to go call those people or email them, it's like, wait, who's this person? And why did I want to talk to them? And of course, they're not going to respond to your email because they're not going to remember you at that point. So this is really the most vulnerable stage of a relationship. You go from the meet cute to the future. So you met each other, you said hello, you made a connection. How do you go from that to being friends? And the answer is to create a future. And you want to create the future before you say goodbye. So here's how you do that. It's so simple. I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. So you need 2 things. It's just 2 things. You need a way to contact them. Most of you are already doing this, right? Do you have a business card? Can I connect with you on LinkedIn? You know, those are pretty much the two ways you do it. And this part is easy, but if you stop here, you're going to end up with a stack of business cards and no new friends. So instead, add this piece, create a context for the next step. Really simple. Ask for something. I'd love to speak with you for 15 minutes about your work. Would it be all right if I email you next week to schedule a call? Ask for something. Ask for something small, but make a very clear request. Or alternatively, you can offer something. I really enjoyed talking with you about restaurants in New York City, and I will totally forward you that article I mentioned that I read last week. So you offer something to them, and it can be anything. It can be relevant to what you discussed. Usually there will be lots of ideas that you have, recommendations that you can make, anything like that. But offers work as well. And then you can also offer to make a connection. I'd love to introduce you to my friend who's interested in your company. I will reach out next week to connect you. These are three really simple contexts for next steps: an ask, an offer, or a connection. And look, don't overthink this. The simplest way to do this is just to say, hey, I really enjoyed speaking with you. I would love to connect next week. Can I have your business card? I'll send you an email so that we can connect. Even that is much better than nothing, because now they're waiting to hear from you. And now you feel at ease actually sending that email because you know that they're waiting to hear from you. And at this point, if you don't send the email because you said you would, then you're kind of a jerk. So now you're also on the hook to follow up. So this is like a really awesome trick. And I recommend that you use this liberally at the networking festival. Though be prepared to get an answer of no from some of the senior most people, because they have a system for this. So if you ask a partner to give you their card, they might say, just get the card of the recruiting manager. And then don't worry about that. Just take the card of the recruiting manager. But give this a shot. It will make it a lot easier for you to bridge the gap from hello to now we're really friends. And so the rest of this equation is just shared positive experiences and shared connections. And we don't have a whole lot of time to get into this today, but let me just give you a couple of hints. True friendship blossoms over time. You know this. The people that are closest and most meaningful to you are not the people you met last week at a networking event. They're the people that you've known over time and have shared a lot of positive experiences. So one tip to navigate this middle part of your friendship effectively is to apply this rule. Always follow up. Always follow up. If you implemented someone's feedback, if you benefited from their advice, if you followed their example, if they connected you with someone, if they recommended you for something, if you met someone who knew them, if you were just thinking of them and thinking of how grateful you were for the advice they gave you 10 years ago, let them know. I can't tell you how many people I've helped throughout my career where I introduced them to someone, I recommended them for a job, I put in a really good word for them, and they never followed up to let me know how it went. And then I just didn't help them again, because it's no fun to put your energy out there and never really know what happens to it. So always follow up with people who support you, with people who are your friends. Basically just be a good person, really simple. So a couple of quick tips for your upcoming festival. Here's some two more tips for specifically for conference style networking events like the one you have coming up here May 10th. I recommend that you set goals before you get there. This conference is pretty tight. John runs a tight ship. It's a pretty well organized thing, pretty efficient. But still, there are going to be more people there that you'll want to talk to than you can possibly talk to. There will be more things that you want to do than you can possibly get done at that event. So decide specifically with whom do you want to connect. Create a target list of a few companies and make sure that you make at least one connection at your most important companies. And then what do you want to learn? Think about what are some of the things that you need to prepare yourself for your MBA, and how can you use this event to gain experience on those things, to gain more information and advice. And then what opportunities do you want to create? So do you really want an internship at an investment bank? So who are all the people that you want to meet? And then what are all the follow-ups that you want to have? Set goals for yourself and go in with a little bit of a plan. It'll make it easier for you to make the most out of the event and also really enjoy it. And then I think you guys all probably know who this is. This is Oscar Wilde. So a little piece of advice from Oscar Wilde. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. You guys are on your way to being overeducated, but you cannot be overdressed. So a frequently asked question is, what should we wear to the networking festival? And so Oscar Wilde says, wear a suit, look sharp. And that's generally good advice. There are very few professional events and environments where wearing a suit isn't the safest, best option. Naturally, there are companies that have, casual dress culture. So if you're going to interview at Google, probably don't wear a suit. But in general, this is really good. When in doubt, wear a suit. Good piece of advice. Okay, so let's recap. This is not the time to build your network. Focus on making genuine human connections, not selling yourself. And then give the connection a future when you meet someone that you want to stay in touch with. You won't give every single connection a future. Every single person you talk to is not someone you're going to follow up with. But for anyone that you do want to follow up with, give the connection a future. And then be a good person. Just be a good person. It's not that hard. You can do it. All right, so let me say a few words about YOMO, and then we're going to get into questions. So here's what we've covered today, and below the waterline here is what's left to explore. So we really just scratched the surface, really only on the topic of networking, but the topic of networking is just one of many topics that you're going to want to master as you go forward to actively manage your career as an MBA. So YOMO, this is my favorite program, John. So YOMO stands for You Only MBA Once, but it's also the intersection of YOLO and FOMO, which you may know are two syndromes that all MBAs suffer from. So this course is designed to help you make the most out of your MBA. It's a group coaching program. It starts in June. It's led by me, and it will, the students will be from all of the top MBA programs. And we're going to go into all this stuff. We're going to go into figuring out exactly your values and what you really kind of want to do with your life long term. We're going to set you up with a decision framework to make really confident choices. We're going to go deep into the communication tools of MBAs, excellent resumes, LinkedIn profiles, bios, cover letters, networking introductions, interview fodder, how to evaluate a job and how you line up with it, how to compensate for weaknesses, all of that stuff. And then we're also going to go even deeper into nurturing relationships. So, you're going to have a lot of options to choose from. This is one of the blessings of the MBA, but it's also a curse because you have to make up your mind pretty quickly, and it doesn't work out for everyone. So, this again is a GMAC study. 35% of MBAs are kind of meh about their career. So this is really your one chance to make this big pivot, and seeking the right opportunity for you at first typically feels a little bit like this, like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. So October really is not the time to build your network, and it's not the time to figure out which internship you want. I know that's bad news for a lot of people. October is too late to be asking yourself the question of what internship you want to have. So this is what I've found in my many years doing this, is that what you don't know about MBA recruiting could get you here at the end if you're not careful, or it could get you here. And this is like maybe even worse, like getting crammed into a job that isn't the one that you really want. So in addition to YOMO, which is coming up in June, I have a free e-course called 5 Myths About MBA Recruiting Busted. Isn't that a great graphic, John? Do you like my little skull with fire? Yeah. I really brought it on this one. So if you're interested in this course, and this is really for people who are watching the live stream or the recording, here you can go to this URL, careerprotocol.com/YOMO-waitlist. And you will get information about YOMO when it's available. And you'll also get invited to this content about the 5 myths about MBA recruiting busted, so that you can get a little bit of a head start and get yourself set up for success headed into your MBA.
And I should add, at one point at BCG, Angela actually headed up MBA recruiting for BCG.
Yeah, for the women of North America.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did recruiting at BCG for a couple of years. It was a great job. And part of my work was to go around all the top business schools and train MBA students to get through the interview process. So yeah, this is a topic really near and dear to me, is helping MBAs get the right first job, because you're making this huge investment, all this time, all this money. If you're not moving into the thing that you want to do right out of the gate, it diminishes the value substantially. A question from Sandy here. Yeah, this class is really for everyone. There will be people from online MBAs, full-time, part-time, even executive. Last year we had a couple of executive MBAs do it. So top 50, top 100 European schools, doesn't matter. The course works for any MBA student. All right, so we got time for questions, don't we?
I think we do.
Awesome. Oh, we got a lot of time. Cool.
You know, someone asked earlier when you were going through the 3 things that you read off and you thought that you were not as casually conversing as you would have been, was a question of what if you're going to change industries? In other words, you set up a fairly linear progression from being interested in people to ultimately wanting to consult. What happens if your progression isn't so linear and you're really transitioning out of something, and what you want to transition into is quite different?
Well, this is the magic of this framework, John, because there's nothing whatsoever linear about this at all.
It felt so linear to me.
I know, but that's the illusion of the framework. So when you use time and you focus on what you love, you can create something that appears linear even when it's not at all linear. So my pre-MBA career, and this, look, it says first as a teacher and then as a human resources manager. This couldn't be further away from management consulting, but it is united by this passion of mine for helping people grow and working with organizations to, you know, transform them and make them better. And that was what I wanted to do as a consultant. And so I just connected my passion to the firm that I was speaking to. I could have also changed this and, you know, instead of, let's imagine I wanted to work at Google, right? So I might say, so I'm really excited to work at Google because I know that Google is a place where the organization is really designed for learning opportunities and helping people grow. And I'm excited to be a part of a culture like that. So that would be a totally different way to connect the same passion, the same background to a different firm. This framework's really flexible. So you just have to know a little bit about the person you're talking to and the company you're talking to. And then you've got to know enough about yourself to know what makes you come alive when you talk, like what you're genuinely passionate about. And then you just use that.
Here's a good question from Felicia. Is it a good idea to talk to alumni about the MBA program? Sorry, actually, the Felicia question is, what should I bring to the pre-MBA networking festival? Resume, a notebook? What if I don't have current business cards?
Okay, good question. I recommend you bring a silly hat. No, just kidding.
No.
Okay. Jokes. Don't do that. Well, maybe do that. I would probably do that. Okay. Bring a notebook. Fine. Yeah, there will be things you'll probably want to write down. Bring a resume. I think, look, from now on, bring a resume. Just wherever you go, bring your resume. You don't want to whip it out at an inappropriate moment. But if a recruiter pulls you aside and they start talking to you and they say, hey, do you have a resume? You know, great to have one. So I would say the resume is almost never going to make an appearance at a networking event. The time to really get into, you know, like, hey, is there a job for me? Or is there a fit here? Or are you hiring? The time to talk that is typically not at the networking event itself. It's typically in a follow-up conversation, unless you're going to an event where there is actually recruiting happening at that event. And there are such events. I believe the consortium event is one of those. The Forte Women's event is one of those. NAMBA, National Black. There are a lot of conferences where you will need to have a resume and there will actually be interviewing happening. So for those, definitely bring a resume. But even for this one where you're probably not going to whip out your resume and give it to someone, you probably want to have it. It's gonna feel better just in case. And then business cards. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just going to remind everyone that what we do is we put together a resume book, and every company that's involved in the pre-networking festival gets a resume book. And a number of companies have called and contacted people for internships, even if they didn't attend their sessions. So in fact, while an individual person at the event that you're going to meet at McKinsey or Bain or Morgan Stanley or Amazon or Google may not have access to the resume book, the firm will. So I think it's a good idea to bring your resume, and a good idea not to whip it out unless, as Angela noted, there's really an ideal moment for it. And in terms of calling cards, I cut you off.
Yeah, in terms of business cards, my advice is always to have business cards. And I don't follow this advice. I always forget my business cards and I always leave them at home. But I know that when I was in your shoes, I always felt so awkward when I didn't have a business card. And even though, it's 2018, really? Paper? Come on, let's use LinkedIn. But still, it's awkward when someone asks you for a card and you don't have one. It's not going to feel good to you. So just get ready. Just make business cards. You can do it for $20 on Vistaprint. Just put your email address, a current email address, and your MBA program. Many business schools are going to give you business cards, but they probably haven't done so yet. So I don't know. I just think it's the kind of thing where business cards are so universal that you'll just feel better if you have one.
Here's a really great question. Is it a good idea to reach out to alumni of the program you are going to start in advance of starting the program? And if so, what's the best approach?
Yeah. Absolutely. So in general, right now, you want to be building relationships, and building relationships with alumni is a really good thing to do. I'm going to share with you another blog post that I have about informational interviews, because I think that the informational interview is kind of like the most underrated relationship building tool out there. Basically, an informational interview is just you sit down with someone for 20 minutes and ask them a bunch of really intelligent questions about what they do, and you give them the chance to talk about themselves. Who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love to talk about themselves and what they do? And especially if you've done a little bit of research and you know kind of what they do, what their company does, and much more importantly, what you're looking for. So if you have an understanding of the kinds of team culture that you want to be a part of, if you know the kinds of growth opportunities that you're seeking, if you know what your deal breakers are in a job, this is all stuff that we go through in Yomo in quite a bit of depth, by the way, like figuring all this stuff out for yourself so that you have really confident answers and confident questions going into your MBA. So knowing a little bit about both you and them, and then just asking really intelligent questions and listening to them, it's going to naturally build a relationship. So I definitely recommend that you do that. Reach out to alumni of your school, be polite, be willing to accept no for an answer, and ideally do it through a platform. Well, I mean, you could do it through LinkedIn if you have a friend in common, but since you're now in the alumni, you're now a fellow future alum, you can just say, hey, I'm starting at, Ross in the fall. Can I, you got 20 minutes to speak with me about what you do. I'm really curious about life at the Honest Company or, whatever company it is. And do this now, because now it's April. So they're not going to be thinking, this kid's trying to wrangle an internship. They're going to be thinking, a bright person that I might want to hire for my team someday. Great. Let me talk to them. So yeah, definitely do it now. Great idea.
Here's another great question, Angela. If you met someone many months ago and you failed to follow up, what's the best way to reconnect now?
I love this question. Okay. So it's a really short email and it goes like this. Oh my God, I'm such a jerk. I can't believe it took me 3 months to email you when I told you I would email you the next week. I really apologize, but I'm reaching out to you now because, and then have a reason, and then have a simple ask. Like, can we get together next week? Can I give your contact information to my friend? Whatever is the future now, right? So you always want to be creating a future. This thing here about the anatomy of a friendship is cyclical, right? So anytime you have communication, you have a positive interaction, for the people that aren't close to you, which is going to be most of your professional friends for quite a while, you need to create a future after each interaction. So you do an informational interview. When you end the informational interview, you create the next step, you create the next future. Thank you so much for your time. I'd love to reach out to you in a couple of months when I'm recruiting to see if there are any opportunities at your firm. Would that be okay? Sure, no problem. And then they'll be waiting to hear from you in 2 months. So you kind of always want to be creating a future, and then creating shared positive experiences, create shared connections, create a future. So if you haven't followed up with someone in a long time, you can even use this for people that you didn't thank a long time ago. Like when I said, yeah, I recommended people for jobs and they didn't follow up and let me know what happened. Some of you probably thought, oh my God, I did that once. Oh crap. You can reach out to that person right now. You can just say, oh my God, I am so sorry that I didn't follow up with you. I just wanted to tell you what a difference your help made. And then really give them something, really give them a vivid appreciation of what their help has meant to you. You can always rekindle relationships. And just apologize. Don't make a big deal out of it. Apologize for not having done it before. And then thank them for something and create a future.
As a former recruiter, do you have any positive or negative stories you might be willing to share dealing with MBA students in networking events?
So many stories, John. So many stories.
I bet.
So many stories. Okay. So the best negative story that I can give, and you guys have probably already experienced this. If you haven't, you will very soon during business school. There's always that one guy or gal who feels like they need to do the elevator pitch thing. And so you've got a group of people standing around talking about taco trucks. And then somebody walks in, they find the important person, the guy who works at McKinsey, and then they just drop an elevator pitch on them. And it's so awkward because, there's this group conversation that has nothing to do with work. Someone kind of barges in and then just like gives their shtick. You'll see this happen. I hope none of you will be the one who does it, but this will happen. It always happens at MBA networking events. And it just really shows a lack of emotional intelligence and sensitivity to other people. So really be mindful of the human dynamics. I keep going back to this notion of being human. Networking events are tricky because they bring out, like I said, they bring out our insecurities. We're all vulnerable at networking events. We're being judged and, in some cases there's something at stake. This will be especially true when you're in your on-campus corporate networking events and, BCG comes and there's 20 BCG people and 250 students and everybody's jockeying for attention. So that's not the right moment to make an impression. That's the moment to just make a connection, enjoy the conversation, and then do the elevator pitching later when you're in the interview.
Now here's one I'm really interested in the answer. Is there the best way to walk away from a not so good conversation?
Yes. This is really a panacea right here. It's a future. Okay. So you're having a conversation that you want to get out of for whatever reason. You've got to go to the restroom. You just saw someone more important. They just refreshed the quiche and you need to go grab one before they're gone. You just say, you know what? It's been really great to speak with you and I'd love to follow up. Could I have your card? And they'll give you their card or they won't. And then you say, all right, thanks so much. And then you walk away. And if you want to give them a reason, you say, oh, whatever. I need to use the restroom. I need to refresh my wine. I need to go. I just saw someone I need to speak with. You can give them a reason if you want. Preferably make it sincere. Don't tell them you're going to refill your wine and then just move right over to the next conversation group. Don't be a jerk about it. But the best way to leave, to put a period on the sentence, is to create the future. It's to say, thanks so much for speaking with you. Would love to follow up. Can I have your card? And then walk away.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
We're running out of time. Mm-hmm. But there was one question regarding this. If you are not attending the top 25 MBA program, can you still participate in YOMO?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. I actually answered that one before. I saw that because I actually think that the schools have very differing levels of resources to help you figure out what you want to do and then go after the job that you really want. So this is one of the myths that I'm going to bust in that training I talked about. Career services is there to help you get a job, not your dream job. So depending on the time, depending on how radical the career switch is that you're making, and then depending on the level of resources and opportunities that your school facilitates, the more burden is on you to do the heavy lifting, to really design, imagine, discover, create, and then go after the job that you really want. So in a way, the course is even more effective and more valuable for folks who are at lower ranked MBA programs, because they have fewer companies recruiting on campus, and you'll need to do a little more work to really find the right opportunity.
Great. So if anyone wants to reach out to Angela, you can find her at careerprotocol.com, right?
That is correct.
And I want to repeat actually something that I wrote about you when we wrote our story on the 10 most favorably reviewed MBA admission consultants. And, Angela's not really doing admission consulting anymore. She's doing MBA career coaching. But I think, in the early phases,
John.
right, of admission consulting, you do a lot of introspective thought about where a person is and where they're going to go. And the one quote from one of your clients that I vividly remember is, "Working with Angela is like having an MRI performed on your soul," which kind of on one level scares me, but another level tells me how enjoyable and in-depth and meaningful that experience might be. So let me just say to Angela right now, thank you. Angela actually has a book coming out. It's still a little bit of ways because it hasn't gone to the publisher yet. But I've been reading the manuscript, and it's spectacular. In fact, I've been offered the privilege of writing the foreword for that book, and I am in the process of doing that. So, I'm also looking forward to not only the publication of that book, but more importantly, meeting all of you at our pre-MBA networking event in New York on May 10th and May 11th. It's going to be a terrific event. We have a great lineup of companies. You'll meet really fascinating people who are just about to begin their MBA program, just like you. And although I'm going to miss Angela because she would prefer to be in Florence, Italy, instead of New York City on May 10th, I'm sure I'll be catching up with you soon.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone. Great speaking with you today.
Thanks for watching, everybody. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants.